to you. Good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shantae Charles. I hope that you're having a great and wonderful day. We have got a lot to cover. Yes, we do. And we're going to try to cover it in 45 minutes. If you're on the YouTube, we're going to try to cover it in 30 minutes because we're going to do our talk back. And so, good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope everybody is doing well. It is Relationship Wednesday, and we have been talking about, for Black History Month, we've been talking about relationships of our ancestors. We've been reading a couple of books, learning about their life, learning about their words in real time. And so that is what we are doing today. Now, if you're not subscribed to the page, you might not be able to chat in just a moment. So I want to encourage you to subscribe to the page. I'm turning on subscriber mode, and you have to be subscribed at least 5 minutes before you can comment at this point, okay? All right, that just helps us to keep out people who are just randomly scrolling through and saying all kinds of craziness in the chat on YouTube. We have a little bit more control over on Instagram with our chat. Today's encouragement, we're reading from Daily Motivations for African American Success first. Our daily encouragement. Today's topic is high five. This comes from Charles Johnson, author of The Middle Passage, which is a fiction book about the Middle Passage that I actually happen to have. He says, lack of self confidence and the fear of failure are opposite sides of the same coin. He might be right about that. A little boy was overheard talking to himself as he strutted through the backyard, baseball cap in place, toting a ball and bat. He said, I'm the greatest hitter in the world. Then he tossed the ball into the air, swung at it, and missed. Strike one. Undaunted, he picked up the ball, threw it into the air, and said to himself, I'm the greatest baseball hitter ever, and swung at the ball again. And again he missed. Strike two. He paused a moment to examine his bat and ball carefully. Then a third time he threw the ball into the air. I'm the greatest hitter who ever lived, he said. He swung the bat hard and missed the third time. After a brief pause, he cried out, Wow, strike three. What a pitcher. I'm the greatest pitcher in the world, and proceeded to give himself a number of high fives. Many times in life, we resemble this child. There's something we want, a new job, a new business, or even a home. We want it, but we hesitate to reach for it. What stands in our way? A lack of confidence. When you maintain your confidence, obstacles are overcome. You believe within your heart that you will accomplish your objectives. Deny the voices that tell you that you can't or that you won't, because you can and you will. And when you reach your goal through the trait of self confidence, give yourself a high five because you've got what it takes. The affirmation today is I will always believe in myself. All right. Now, let's hop into the goodies today. We're reading from I Can't Wait to Call You My Wife, African American Letters of Love and Family in the Civil War Era. We started out by reading some letters that were right before the Civil War. I believe we're getting ready to get into a few more letters that are right before the Civil War. This one in particular, this one in particular is very interesting. This one has a image of the man who is writing, which is always powerful when you can actually see the descendants and the ancestors who are writing the letter. This is Germain. I was like, wow, they had a Germain back then. All right, this is Jermaine who is writing this letter that we're about to listen to. Jermaine Logan. Reverend Jermaine Wesley Logan, whose mother Jane was born free in Ohio but kidnapped and sold to Tennessee slaveholders at the age of 7, responds. By 1860, Logan had escaped to Canada through the Underground Network. He had worked at odd jobs, gained an education, and opened schools for black children in Utica and Syracuse, New York. He was now a prominent New York minister, abolitionist, and Underground Railroad operator. By stressing the importance of family, Logan clearly spells out the meaning of enslavement for individual lives and argues that the nature of slavery is antithetical to human rights principles. Now, we always seem to get these stories about what our ancestors did from people who maybe have not read what they actually did. We've gotten a lot of skewed stories about, enslaved people were just kind of sitting back and they were just suffering and nothing was really being done and they just endured slavery, which in some cases that is true, but we have more evidence now. We have more facts to corroborate that there were a lot more people resisting in various ways than was previous thought. So it's important for us to share these stories so that you have a better understanding of what the enslaved person who had been freed or a person who was still in enslavement actually thought about enslavement. Because we don't hear a lot of that, especially when it comes to public schools. All right, so this is his letter: Syracuse, New York, March 28th, 1860. Mrs. Sarah Logue, yours of the 20th of February is duly received, and I thank you for it. It is a long time since I heard from my poor old mother, and I'm glad to know she is yet alive, and as you say, as well as common. What that means, I don't know. I wish you had said more about her. You are a woman, but you had a woman's heart. But had you a woman's heart, you could never have insulted a brother by telling him you sold his only remaining brother and sister because he put himself beyond your power to convert him into money. Whoo! I felt that. He said, if you really had a heart, you would have never insulted a brother by telling them that you sold their only remaining brother and sister because that person put themselves beyond your power to convert them into money. That right there should just make you pause. Because again, people who were formerly enslaved understood that they were human beings and that they were being converted into money. They understood very well. Some people would like you to think that they didn't understand what was going on, but they understood. You sold my brother and sister, Abe and Ann, and 12 acres of land, you say, because I ran away. Now you have the unutterable meanness, I might have to use that. You have the unutterable meanness to ask me to return and be your miserable shadow, or in lieu thereof, send you $1,000 to enable you to redeem the land, but not to redeem my poor brother and sister. In other words, you have unmitigated gall. That's what we would probably call it today. Hmm. Yeah. If I were to send you money, it would be to get my brother and sister, and not that you should get land. You say you are a cripple, and doubtless you say it to stir my pity, for you know I was susceptible in that direction. I do pity you from the bottom of my heart. Nevertheless, I am indignant beyond the power of words to express that you should be so sunken and cruel as to tear the hearts I love so much in all pieces, that you should be willing to impale and crucify us all out of all compassion for your poor foot or leg. Wretched woman, be it known to you that I value my freedom, to say nothing of my mother, brothers, and sisters, more than your whole body, more indeed than my own life, more than all the lives of all slaveholders and tyrants, under heaven. Boy, this is a read. We had a good one yesterday too. You gotta go back and watch that video. You say you have offers to buy me, and that you shall sell me if I do not send you $1,000. And in the same breath, and almost in the same sentence, you say, you know, we raised you as we did our own children. Woman, did you raise your own children for the market? Did you raise them for the whipping post? Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to publish this one today on my page. Did you raise them for the whipping post? Did you raise them to be drove off in a coffle of chains? Where are my poor bleeding brothers and sisters? Can you tell? Who was it that sent them off into sugar and cotton fields to be kicked and cuffed and whipped and to groan and die? And where no kin can hear their groans or attend and sympathize at their dying bed or follow in their funeral. Wretched woman, do you say you did not do it? Then I reply, your husband did, and you approved the deed. And the very letter you sent me shows that your heart approves it all. Shame on you. But by the way, where is your husband? You don't speak of him. I infer, therefore, that he is dead, that he is gone to his great account, with all his sins against my poor family upon his head. Poor man, gone to meet the spirits of my poor, outraged, and murdered people in a world where liberty and justice are masters. Woo-wee! Good God Almighty. This is a sermon of the ages. But you say I am a thief because I took the old mare along with me. Is it a greater sin for me to steal his horse than it was for him to rob my mother's cradle and steal me? Have you got to learn that human rights are mutual and reciprocal? And if you take my liberty and life, you forfeit your own liberty and life? Y'all, this is 1860. This is that 1860 whipped down with the truth. Before God and high heaven, is there a law for one man which is not a law for every other man? If you or any other speculator on my body and rights wish to know how I regard my rights, they need to but come here and lay their hands on me to enslave me. Do you think to terrify me by presenting the alternative to give my money to you or give my body to slavery? Then let me say to you that I meet the proposition with unutterable scorn and contempt. The proposition is an outrage and an insult. I will not budge one hair's breadth. I stand among a free people who, I thank God, sympathize with my rights and the rights of mankind. And if your emissaries and vendors come here to re-enslave me and escape the unshrinking vigor of my own right arm, I trust my strong and brave friends in this city and state will be my rescuers and avengers. Yours, J.W. Logan. Cue shouting music. Dun, 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 dun. Woo! Peace, peace to the descendants of Jermaine Logan. Man, Jermaine said, I ain't going down without a fight. You come up here and try to re-enslave me if you want to. If you survive my fists, then I trust that those who are my friends and helpers will avenge me. But he said, I ain't going down without a fight. All right, our second and last book for today. I hope you enjoyed that because I enjoyed that. Mr. Jermaine, you all right with me? I'm going to post his whole letter. I'm going to post his whole letter today on Black Table Talk because we all need to hear that. We need to hear the fierceness and the ferocity with which people regarded the evil of enslavement, the evil of selling people away, the evil of converting human beings to money. We need to hear that, especially the United States, as they are literally in the process of trying to do that with a lot of people. All right, second and last book, Many Thousand Gone African Americans from Slavery to Freedom. I explained yesterday that this was a discarded library book that I was able to pick up, and I'm so very glad I did. We are in the section entitled The Running Aways or People Who Escaped. The next escapee is Elizabeth Freeman. There were not many enslaved persons in Massachusetts in the late 1700s, and those who were enslaved were apparently treated with some dignity or decency. Many took their meals with their white owners, few were sold away. Incidents of cruelty did occur, though. Elizabeth Freeman, known as Mom Bet, and her sister worked in the same Massachusetts household. One day, the mistress became angry at Mom Bet's sister and tried to strike her with a hot poker. Mom Bet was in the way, and the poker struck her by mistake. She suffered a searing burn on the arm. Mom Bet left the house almost immediately. She would not go back, even though the mistress begged her to. I'll never go back, Mom Bet said, and she never did. But she did carry the scar from the hot poker for the rest of her life. The owner tried to get Mom Bet back by going to court, but the Massachusetts Bill of Rights, recently adopted, stated that all men, meaning all people, are born free and equal, and the court decided in Mom Bet's favor. Now officially free, she began working as a servant and then became a midwife. She lived to be 97 or 98. Mom Bet's case was one of the first to test the Massachusetts Bill of Rights. You can look her up, Elizabeth Freeman, also known as Mom Bet. The next one we're going to hear about today is The Right of Chloe. In 1792, Chloe Cooley, Cooley, if you want to look her up, Chloe Cooley was the property of a man called Vrooman, who lived in Queenstown, Canada, now Queenston, Ontario. That summer, Chloe learned to her horror that Vrooman had sold her to an American. She knew nothing about America or her new owner, only that she would be taken to him by boat. She was so terrified that she had to be bound and carried onto the boat lest she run away. When the boat docked on the American shore where her new owner waited, Chloe was carried off screaming and struggling. She fought as best she could, but still she was taken away. Of course, Chloe's owner had every legal right over her. He could rope, sell, and export her just as he would one of his farm animals. She was his property according to the law, without a single right of her own. But many Canadians thought Vrooman had treated her cruelly by selling her away. The Executive Council of Ontario was so disturbed by the incident that a hearing was held to discuss it. The Executive Council then passed a resolution to prevent the continuance of such violent breaches of the public peace, and that His Majesty's Attorney General be directed to prosecute the said Vrooman. The Chloe Cooley incident resulted in the Imperial Act of 1793, which outlawed the importation of slaves into Upper Canada. So she remained enslaved, but her case actually helped other people to not be imported into America. All right, we have some advertisements. These are actual advertisements from the 1800s, and the artist here is actually doing a really good job. This is illustrated by Leo and Diane Gillen. So this book is illustrated by them. Some of the advertisements that would have been posted. The two announcements below appeared in the York Gazette and Oracle on February 1800 and September 1803. They were placed by the Honorable Peter Russell, government administrator of the province of York in Upper Canada, who was also a slave owner. The advertisements gave a glimpse into the mind of a slaver and into the life of a black woman formerly his property. 1800. To be sold, a black woman named Peggy, age 40 years, and a black boy, her son named Jupiter, age 15 years. Both of them the property of the subscriber. The woman is a tolerable cook and washerwoman and perfectly understands making soap and candles. Price $150. For the boy, $200. Payable in 3 years with interest from the date of sale and to be secured by bond, but one fourth less will be taken for ready money. Again, when we say that we were the cash, capital, credit, bond, mortgage, insurance of this nation, all you have to do is read the historical records. So the people who are walking around here just saying they don't owe black people anything, pay them no attention because the historical record says otherwise. Here's the other ad, 1803. The subscriber's black servant, Peggy, not having his permission to absent herself from his service, that's how they say they ran away. The public are hereby cautioned from employing or harboring her without the owner's leave. Whoever will do so after this notice is expect to be treated as the law directs. So Peggy got away. The last thing we're going to read today is we're going to read about the Gabriel Prosser uprising. Gabriel Prosser uprising. A lot of us have heard about Nat Turner. Some people have heard about Denmark VC. I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about Gabriel Prosser. So let's get into it. From the very beginning, the institution of human bondage resulted in slave revolts and uprisings. As the importation of enslaved persons to America increased, so too did slaves' desperate longing to be free. Early on, they realized that running away was a painful and slow process, freeing one enslaved person at a time. But uprisings could set numbers of them free all at once. The Prosser insurrection took place in 1800 following two serious yet poorly organized uprisings, one in Stono, South Carolina, also known as the Stono Rebellion, and in 1739, and the other in New York City in 1741. And I think I've talked about that one before. Gabriel Prosser's revolt was a model of planning and organization. 6 feet 2 inches tall, the property of Thomas Prosser of Virginia, Gabriel was 24 years old in the spring of 1800. He had two brothers, Solomon and Martin, and a wife, Nanny. For some time, the four had been making secret preparations. They had also persuaded other enslaved persons to follow them. Gabriel Prosser knew much about military planning and war. He was an admirer of a black man from Haiti named Pierre Dominique Toussaint Louverture. Louverture was the leader of the Haitian Revolution in 1791, which began when 100,000 Haitian enslaved persons went on a rampage, unaliving slave owners and burning down plantations. Louverture seized control of the revolt and turned frenzied enslaved people into a disciplined army. Gabriel Prosser believed he could do what Louverture had done. He would start an army and overcome the cruel white men who kept black people as slaves. Whenever possible, Gabriel, his brothers, and his wife slipped away from their labor to discuss strategy. They also managed to find storehouses of government ammunition in Richmond, Virginia. By the late summer of 1800, Gabriel had brought together several thousands of enslaved people who swore that they would help him overthrow the owners to create a black stronghold in Virginia. The Prosser plan was to attack Richmond with 3 columns of men. The first prong would take the storehouse and claim all the guns. Another prong would liberate the powder store, excuse me. The last prong would overcome the town itself, striking every person who was white, except the French people, Methodists, Quakers, and the poor. I'm going to just leave that right there. The French would be spared because they had taught freedom lovers the phrase liberty, equality, fraternity. The Methodists and Quakers because they believed in liberty, and the poor whites because in a slave society they were suffering almost as much as the enslaved. With the element of surprise, the plan might have worked. But on the night marked for the uprising, August 30th, there was a terrible storm. Rain poured, the land flooded, Bridges and roads were washed away. Nothing could move in such violent weather. Far worse was the fact that two slaves had betrayed Gabriel Prosser and revealed his plan to a slave owner. Unknown to Prosser, the governor, called out the militia. Before Prosser could bring his men together after the storm, the militia attacked. Gabriel Prosser was captured on board a ship as he tried to escape. He would not reveal his plan of insurrection. His captors were amazed by his proud, unflinching manner. He knew he would be put to death and said not a word about the uprising he had led. He was tried, convicted, and hanged on October 7, 1800. 35 of his co conspirators were also hanged. The uprising terrified whites everywhere, including those in the North, and resulted in a wave of legislation limiting the freedom of all black people. In 1804, Ohio passed a series of slave codes called the Black Laws or the Black Codes that limited the movement and the rights of free black people. Many other northern states also passed black codes. Anti DEI, anti CRT, anti woke, all of that is black codes, just in case you didn't know that. Black settlers were barred from the Oregon Territory and from Indiana and Illinois. In 1822, a South Carolina enslaved man named Denmark Vesey planned an uprising. It was betrayed, and 130 blacks were arrested along with four whites. The whites were convicted of being in sympathy with the plot, and they were fined and jailed. Because again, most white people are not going to get the harshest punishment. Now we know John Brown did and his sons, but these white people were only convicted of having sympathy for black people, having sympathy for the enslaved, and they were fined and jailed. But Denmark Vesey and five of his aides and 31 others were hanged. The slave informer of the plot, of course, through meritorious manumission, was given his freedom by the state and $50 a year, which increased to $200 a year in 1857. So that one person who told on the whole thing, he was rewarded and rewarded yearly, while everybody else died. Which one of them do you want to be your ancestor? Selah. That's it for today. I want to thank you for your time and attention. I hope you learned something that you didn't know. I hope you will go look up these names. Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, Jermaine Logan, Logun, Jermaine Logan. But I'm going to share his story online. Um, yeah, that's it for today. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. I want to thank you for your time and attention. If you want to join us for the talk back, you can meet us over on Instagram. The handle is at Daring Dialogues, all one word. We'll see you there. Be well, and most importantly, be light.